Ladies and gentlemen, today it is a great pleasure to introduce one of the most remarkable human beings that school has ever produced. Every one of you out here knows something about Jonathan Rooney today, or Rooney Dog, or wretchedly, I guess he's called J-Ro too, which is way too close to J-Lo, and that demeans him. He's better than that, in my estimation. It's really hard to encapsulate this guy. To be honest, I've delivered a lot of these speech introductions over the years, and this is one of the hardest I've ever had to do. First of all, it's just too rich. There are so many Rooney stories. It could take hours to go through them all the way back to the lower school, where he was noted for absently staring off into space and dwelling on it 24 hours a day. And we even brought a lower and middle school teachers back to share with us his speech today about that. But to try to put it together, I'm going to draw from a lot of my colleagues and friends here. A brilliant Scottish philosopher who happens to be sitting among us today said, "The Rooney Gestalt involves having many, many, many balls floating in the air at the same time." Anyone who knows Rooney, you can envision Rooney the jester. How in the world does he balance swimming, robotics, a daunting academic schedule, everything that goes on into this auditorium, whether it's senior speeches or whether it's Mr. Guthrie's fantasy night, the spirit of the senses? Rooney runs it all. And if there's one word, I guess, that would define Rooney, and many colleagues say, it's running. Running. How many times have you seen Rooney run from there to here, frantic, hair flying around? Or anyone who's taught Rooney, you can predict the bell will ring, there will be a crash through the door, books, hair, things will come flying in, and it's Rooney. Or how many times I was reminded, even the 2 years before I ever taught him, Rooney, you'll get to know him by running. He will always be running. He may show up in your right class, or he may not, because he gets confused daily, hourly, minute by minute. But when I think of Rooney, I think rather oddly of the ancient mythological beast Cerberus, the three-headed mythic dog that guarded the gates of the underworld or hell, but in a different light, not quite the literal way that I see it. I see three different faces on Rooney. I see a puppy, number one. Rooney is just like a yellow lab puppy. He piddles on your rug, he eats your shoes, he drools, his hygiene is sketchy and all that. But my God, you gotta love him. How could you not love a yellow lab Rooney-esque puppy? Even if he drools, blows off your homework, shows up late, forgets to do whatever Rooney is contracted to do because he is juggling 35 balls in the air at one time, fully intending to pull it all off, but there are only 24 hours in a day, and even the Master Rooney can't quite pull that off. And then I think of a rather idealized mythic Peter Pan, a little boy who never grows up, the one who embraces Mr. Guthrie's science class, the one who does rather remarkable things with somebody by the name of perhaps Phoebe, running around. He'll go to watch Les Mis and cry, and she'll have to hold his hand and take him out and try to explain his behavior. Or he has a fascination with cats. Rooney is notorious for being a cat lover, so that on his most recent birthday, someone thought it might be good to give him that bad kitty cat calendar. But no, Rooney goes, well, this is the third one I've received today. So there's this little boy in him that you're never going to quite grow up. Or he loves to play truth or dare, I'm told. And that in a 24-hour cycle, just to prove that he could do it, he responded to every inquiry or question with, do you want fries with that? Do you want fries with that? I'm sure that worked real well in Ms. Maz's calculus class. Jonathan, will you solve this? Sure. Do you want fries with that? Kind of a thing. But I think of him more as Pythagoras, as a teacher. And in one story about Pythagoras, they said he was a man supremely beautiful. I'll let Phoebe decide that part of it. Wise, we can all agree on that, and beneficial to mankind. And that is Rooney. There are so many ways that he teaches, and he's so diverse. I reviewed his academic record, and in the sciences, it's stellar when he does the work and doesn't get kicked out of his math class and have to beg his way back in. So he has the scientific side of a Pythagorean in that. But he also has a spiritual side and a teaching side and component. One of the most remarkable stories I heard about him was when he was last year at a summer camp opportunity fair. He was there on behalf of, I believe, the Animal Wildlife League. The Arizona. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Rooney, you swine, for that. He's there with snakes and iguanas and lizards and reptiles, trying to convince little school-aged children how beautiful, gentle they are. Don't be afraid of them. And I was told by the witness who observed it, it was magical how he was working with people. How has he trained the crew to replace him up here? And that. The other word that might describe Rooney besides running, and Mr. Burns really emphasizes big. Everything about Rooney is big. His accomplishments, his dreams, his goals, and things like that. And I can attest to that because Rooney, that dog, wrote the longest paper I've ever had to read in my life, over 100 pages on the Titanic. Wow. It was a 15-page paper. But that's Rooney, big. I'm reminded of a quote by Desmond Tutu because this defines Rooney in a way. And he says, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." And that is true about Rooney. His life here is dropping these little bits of good around each and every one of us every day. And I want to close by agreeing with my colleague and friend, Mr. Keith Burns, when he says, great things will be because of Jonathan Rooney. I firmly believe that, and I'm honored today to introduce them. And freshmen, he's going to school you and teach you about what is good, about what Mr. Kuhn calls the Harrison Vandola Award of this class. So pay attention to Mr. Rooney, and you will learn. Jonathan Rooney.
Hey, have you seen my last page? Oh, here it is. Wait. Okay.
Let me get one of these out here.
This is the right
Let me
one.
just take that.
My axe. Some of you no doubt know that bass line. Money by Pink Floyd. I mean, I'll say it's pretty famous on its own, but about half of you have heard it somewhere else. Mr. Martin's Classroom, where it provides the soundtrack to a certain video on the Gilded Age. Now, being from such a bygone era as the 70s, this video hardly escapes criticism. Has it really been 40 years? But rarely am I drawn into this generational conflict as strongly as I was earlier this year, when one student, who I unfortunately am obliged to leave unnamed, thought it would be a good idea to tell that mustachioed bane of all freshmen, and I quote, "Anyone who still listens to Pink Floyd is a stoner." Now, I would still have no knowledge of this had Mr. Martin not immediately answered, "Well, what about Rooney Dog, huh?" And I must say, that hit the nail on the head. Well, not the stoner part, obviously. But I would say Floyd is easily one of my favorite bands. David Gilmour's guitar work is some of the finest ever put on record, set over richly layered instrumentals that create a perfect backdrop to their marvelous lyrics, dealing with complex topics like social isolation, class structures, and, of course, a mad Scotsman desire to keep control over his students. Freshmen, take note from Mr. Guthrie's class. But they're far from alone in my personal pantheon of rock. They sit alongside the raw power, not to mention ridiculous masculinity, of Led Zeppelin, the wonderful poetry of the likes of Bob Dylan and the Stones, and of course the 60s classics of the Beatles and the Stones. Why do I listen to these oldies? Let's consider my alternatives briefly. Oliver, hit it.
To my homegirls here with the big butt, shaking it like we at a strip club. Remember, only God could judge ya. Forget the haters, cause somebody loves ya. And everyone in line in the bathroom, trying to get a line in the bathroom.
Wow, that's really something. To my homegirls here with the big butt. Shaking it like we had a strip club. What does that even mean? And did she just rhyme bathroom with bathroom? Well, I guess there's a reason I'm not a songwriter today. I never would have thought to do that. In all seriousness, I really respect the PR guy who had to sell that song. I mean, that's almost a more gargantuan task than finding a word that rhymes with bathroom. Only God can judge you, Miley? Yeah, no, I'm judging you too. Whatever happened to music with intelligence? Music that really made you think? I mean, of the top 10 songs of 2013, according to Billboard, one was about shopping, one advocated date rape, and one was a dance song that sounded like two fax machines faxing. But there was a time when political commentary topped the charts. Thoughts on current events. Musings on love with meanings beyond let's sleep together. John Lennon asked us to imagine a world with no possessions. Buffalo Springfield warned us to stop and look at what's going down. Bob Dylan told us the answers to all our questions are blowing in the wind. Rush put on record incredible imagery of Nazi concentration camps, life in suburbia, and rule by the Red Star of the Solar Federation. And what do we have now? Well, there's apparently some lines that are blurred, or a couple that's never, ever, ever getting back together. That just about sums it up. Lyrics so uninspired, so insipid, they make Alex's ID paper look like a masterpiece. And because popular music has never been much more than commentary or love songs, when it lost its place as the former, 90% of it became the latter. And I wouldn't even have a problem with that. Love songs are, after all, the classic genre. Rock music has a long, rich history of singing about love. Shoot, the Beatles based an entire career on it. I want to hold your hand. She loves you. I mean, some variety would be nice, but at least I've got plenty of apt music on the way to and from dates. No, love songs aren't my problem. What really bothers me is that half the love songs out there really, really stretch the definition of love song. They're more like, with such timeless lyrics as, "You're an animal, baby. It's in your nature. Just let me liberate you." Or, "Girl, look at that body. Times 18. I counted. I don't think love is really the song's main subject matter anymore. So there's your modern pop song summed up. It almost always deals with the same topic, usually in the same manner. Now, if you will allow me to consider something a little older, I brought a prop. The Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd's seminal 1973 masterpiece, is oft cited as one of the greatest albums of all time. A fact that may come as some surprise when you consider that it spent 15 years on the charts. It actually took me a really long time to get around to listening to this album. I had the CD sitting on my desk for a year, but it's just such a stereotypically fabulous album, and I'm such a secret hipster that I couldn't do it. I don't remember exactly what it was that made me open it, nor do I remember what I was doing as I soaked in all 45 minutes of it, besides soaking in all 45 minutes of it. But I do recall that I immediately cursed myself for waiting so long. True to form, the album is spectacular. Every note of every song strikes a perfect chord. As it falls into place in the disc's grander theme of life, love, and all its aspects, from birth to death to insanity. A powerful, moving, thought-provoking piece, Dark Side remains one of my favorite albums of all time. Anyway, there's that. Look, my point is that music just used to be better, deeper, more thought-provoking, like Elton John. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell. And there's no one there to raise them if you did. Wait, really? Is that even a real Elton John lyric? That's like, moving on. How about, I thought that they were angels, but to my surprise, they climbed aboard their starship. We headed for the skies. Really? Styx, you're letting me down here. How about some good lyrics? Journey's got some good ones. How about, ooh, all night, ooh, every night. So hold tight, ooh, baby, hold tight. Come on, these are supposed to be classics. I give up. I need a drink. Well, that was painful. I guess the classics aren't all as classic as I thought. You know what? Maybe it's not the classics are better. Well, yes it is, sometimes, usually. But correlation doesn't imply causation. Maybe they're not good because they're classics, but classics because they're good. Not every old song is a masterwork of poetry. Just look at every disco song ever released. Ever. But we forget the bad ones. They just disappear into the mists of time and they're forgotten. This idea actually has a name. It's called survivorship bias. The idea that the past seems better only because the better things survived. Disco was massively popular for a brief time, but was ultimately just too terrible to remember. Just thinking about it gives me a Saturday night fever. I'm so sorry, those of you who got that. Similarly, not every song released nowadays is an exercise in shallow writing. I have a confession. I listen to top 40 radio. And I have Pink on my phone, though I refuse to write her name with an exclamation point. Well, that's off my chest. You know who I really respect? I love Adele. I laugh at her because she wrote an entire album about a single event, and that event was her boyfriend breaking up with her. More love songs, really? But she actually wrote some really good, thoughtful lyrics. And she actually wrote those lyrics, not some songwriter the record company brought in. And perhaps most importantly, she has a really, really good voice. All she would need is a new subject matter, and I would really, really respect her. So there. There is some talent in the music industry today. It would have been like fun. Well, there. Don't say fun, Jonathan. Don't say fun. But I do like them a lot. I've come a long way from that kid who only listened to show tunes and Star Wars soundtracks. You know what? I still listen to Star Wars sometimes. Because I finally realized something. I shouldn't listen to music only because it's not cool. I shouldn't reject music because it's not cool. Or because I decided that I shouldn't like an entire genre. Eminem, looking at you. I listen to what I like. What makes me feel good. It took me a long time to find that ground, and I'm still experimenting. But getting there has been just the most wonderful experience I've ever had. So open your ears, folks. You might just hear something spectacular. Oliver? Wait, no, top 40? Really? This is fine. It works. Thank you.